The Lima cartel is meeting in Ottawa today to plan the economic hit on Venezuela. You'd think Trudeau would have learned something about being a Trump chump after arresting the Huawei lady, but I guess not. Venezuela is Spanish for Vietnam, and we're all in this time. As a Canadian, I'm proudest when we pass on American imperialist ventures. Like Vietnam or Iraq. Messing around in Haiti and Libya just made nation wreckers out of peacekeepers. Harper heartily endorsed the Honduras coup in 2009, but hey, he liked rigging elections. Today, neo-liberated Honduras is the leading source of migrant caravans in the Western Hemisphere. Venezuela had an election last May. Nicolas Maduro won. Nobody has actually explained what was wrong with that election, other than a socialist won. Now Canada, in the thrall of its oil and mining interests, and Yankee imperialism, is backing a baby Bolsonaro. And what's our self-appointed man in Caracas offering? Well, just selling off Venezuela's resources and assets to the vultures of international capital. Not much in there for Venezuelans, but who cares? Yes, there's a crisis in Venezuela, but it's entirely caused by American sanctions. Like the sanctions that killed 500,000 Iraqi kids after Bush the Elder bombed Iraqi water plants then sanctioned chlorine. When W invaded Iraq a decade later, almost another 1,000,000 people died. There was a crisis to solve in Iraq back then too. Remember all those weapons of mass distraction? But it's all good now. Iraqi oil has been neo-liberated. Despite sanctions, Venezuela built 3 million public housing units in 2 decades. Meanwhile, back in Toronto, 100,000 people are waiting for public housing, and more than 100 people a year die homeless in the street. Our First Nations have been boiling their water for 25 years now. Still wonder why Venezuelans keep voting socialist? Trudeau could distinguish himself by dumping Trump and selling the Venezuelans sanctioned malaria drugs and insulin. But Trump would call him a commie, like Nixon called Trudeau the Elder. If Trudeau actually gave a shit about humanitarian crises, he'd shut his cake hole about Venezuela until no Canadian dies sleeping rough in the polar vortex. In Toronto, for Rabble TV, I'm Umberto da Silva.